This episode of the Mamilennials Podcast is brought to you by MJ Photography. Hi, Mamilennials. We have something special for you.
You know what's wild?
What?
Moms are the memory keepers, but somehow we are missing from the memories.
Mm-hmm.
You're capturing everything, first steps, first word, every little moment. But when you look back, we're barely in the frame.
You probably have a million photos of your kids, but how many of those photos are you actually in?
Girl, none. I look back at those photos. I'm trying to take selfies. I look crazy. I just really need to get them professionally done.
Well, lucky for us.
Our girl, Mariandre, owner of MJ Photography and a Maryland wedding and lifestyle photographer, is hosting a motherhood mini session on April 25th in a gorgeous studio space with a clean, modern aesthetic and the dreamiest floral setup.
Think soft, elevated, and timeless, but still fun and full of life.
These aren't stiff, awkward photos because that is not her vibe. They're natural, joyful, and full of those real in-between moments with your kiddos.
Because that's what she's all about, capturing stories with heart and intention.
And we have a little treat for you.
Yay!
Listeners get VIP booking access plus 15% off your full gallery purchase.
So head over to her Instagram at MDRE Photography, that's MDREE Photography, and book your mini session today.
You'll be so happy that you did.
We hope to see you there. Welcome to the Mamilennials Podcast, where we don't claim to have all the answers, just a willingness to figure it out. We're your hosts, Jocelyn
and Lauren, proud girl moms and best friends sharing our take on mommyhood. Whether you're changing a dirty diaper, stuck in traffic, or just have a minute to yourself,
we're so happy you're here. Hi, Mamilennials.
Hey, Mamilennials.
Today, we're joined by our friend Miranda.
Hi, Mamilennials.
Miranda is someone so special to me. She's now my friend. But she started off as my doula for Layla's birth. And ever since we started Mamilennials, we always knew we needed to get her on here to talk about my experience, to talk about being a doula. She's also a Mamilennial herself. There's just so much to get into for this episode.
I'm excited.
Yes.
So Miranda is owner, founder of District Birth.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about District Birth.
Wow. So District Birth is a modern birth doula business that I've built out of passion and just so much love for empowering women and families that I've been privileged to work with. I've been a doula for coming into my 11th year now, but I think right around that mark where I was hitting 10 years, I need something of like my own, and I want like a legacy that I can like have to like share and like see it grow stronger and bigger. And so District Birth for me has been my own baby in the sense that I've been able to have the gestational period of having that thought and it being a tiny, tiny seed to now seeing it grow and being able to support so many families and all of the things that we're coming into next.
Yeah, I can't believe it's been 10 years basically since you decided to become a doula.
Truly.
What made you become a doula? What was your thought process behind that?
You know, I always share that there's always been a calling that I've had in my life to be a doula, because even when my little brother was born, I was 4, and I remember my mom's midwife let me help pull him from the womb and place him on her chest. And then funnily enough, I had a friend who had gotten pregnant when we were in high school, and it was right around the time that the movie Juno came out. And so I remember my grandfather like dropped me off at the hospital to like go do her induction with her. Like I remember we watched Juno the entire time, and she was actually choosing an adoption. And so it was such a beautiful way of seeing that journey and the experience. And then I noticed like my older brother would have me like present at like the births of like his kids, and I didn't even like realize until I'd gone through like my own hardship. I ended up losing my daughter before we had Maddox, and in that time I realized that I was so unheard and like so not listened to throughout the entirety of my experience, that there's like so much of a disparity of support. It's kind of funny because I feel like us millennials, like we definitely grew up with Ricki Lake shows on the TV at a certain point, and Ricki Lake herself actually made this really fantastic documentary called The Business of Being Born. And as I was processing the loss of my daughter, I was just like trying to do as much research on like what birthing here in America is like. And I had discovered that documentary and I was like, holy shit, this was mind opening and revealing. And I learned in that like, Black and brown women have such a high mortality rate in comparison, and that there's just so much of the kind of perfect storm for things not being as supported in the US for birthing experiences. And so I kind of started in the opposite sector, where through my own loss, I found a lot of support in helping other families. We were a very small but mighty military community where we were at the time. And so kind of working with like other spouses and partners who were going through the experience. My own partner had to leave on a deployment a week and a half, 2 weeks after we had gone through the loss. And so it was just me on my own, researching, learning. And so I started working in the bereavement field of being a doula. And then as I healed and developed more of my own sense of, oh, birth really is definitely lacking so much support, I started paving that path. And then I got pregnant with my son, and they were like, you have to have a doula too. And so it kind of just threw me into that world very quickly. And so I had my own doula at my birth, and she definitely inspired so much of like the journey in the beginning for sure. And I don't think I thought we would be here though 10 years later.
So a lot of what you said, especially about Black and brown women, is why we always encourage moms to get a doula.
I love that. It's so needed.
Because when you're pregnant, knowing those stats, it puts you in a really scary place.
Yeah, it's so vulnerable.
Absolutely. Lauren and I talk often about the different approaches there are to, I say doula-ing. And so...
Is there a proper word for it? Doula-ship?
You know, I don't think there is. It's so funny because like on my Oura ring, like whenever I'm at a birth and it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, go to sleep. I've labeled my own tag and I've just labeled it doula-ing. So I feel like that's the coin term.
I'm onto something with the doula-ing.
You're onto something.
We gotta add that to the dictionary.
Yeah. So both times Lauren has had an individual doula that she's worked with. We talked about what I would do when I was pregnant, and I opted for a team approach. So I went with EC doulas, and there were a lot of parts about it that I liked, right? They had classes and stuff like that and support groups. And I was always a little iffy on, not really getting to know someone through the whole process and all of that. But I didn't want to be put in a tricky situation. So that's what worked for me. Yeah. And I was really happy with my experience. Absolutely. Partially because my doula, the day I gave birth, was a Black woman. And that made me feel so much more comfortable. Good. I was like, this woman will have my back. And I had a really tough time after I gave birth. And her being there really gave me the little bit of peace of mind that I had. Can you tell us a little bit about the different approaches?
Absolutely. So I don't think there's one right way to be a doula or to have a doula experience. And so for the better half of my career, actually, right after I finished up training, I'd met this amazing woman, Elizabeth, who is the founder of the agency that I was with for, 8, 9, I'm still with them today. My roles have looked a little bit differently over the years, but I met her at a time that I don't even think I had plans to move to DC yet. And she was like, you would be an amazing doula. Like, I would love to have you on my team. And at the time I was like, yeah, but I'm probably never moving to DC. So like, just like had to go in one ear and out the other. And then maybe like 3 to 4 months after Maddox was born, we had moved up here to DC where she's also at. And so immediately she was like, all right, great, let's go in the field. And I was like, I am not ready. I was still shadowing my own mentors, really taking my time in the seat of being a student. And after a few months, my very first ever birth was the agency approach. And it was like something that it was a complete like emergency where they needed support in that time. But it ended up being so beautiful. And I think that gave me such a strong appreciation of having that collective of other people that you can bounce off of. And over the years, having that hive mind approach definitely served me very beautifully and well. And it still does. Like I still feel really privileged to be able to have access to like a foundation. What inspired District Birth, I wanted more of the intimacy with my clients. I felt like when I was with maintaining only doula agency clients that it was a little bit harder to like kind of connect and offer the levels of care that like I wanted, because to the point where you mentioned classes, like we still had those, but it wasn't very individualized. And so like with Lauren, like we got to do like private childbirth education and really just kind of meet families like where they were versus having to assimilate and be like, hey, come to this 4-hour class. I'm going to talk at you. And then after that, there's just not as much connection. And so I feel like for me, it's been a complete game changer having my own private practice for being a doula, just because I think that now the families that do attract and come into District Birth are like really aligned with me. It's people that I get to really enjoy spending time with, people who become my friends, case in point. And so it's been a game changer. I think that I was meeting a burnout when I was only doing agency clients for a while. So I definitely feel a lot happier now.
Yeah. I mean, my biggest concern and fear with working with a team approach was that I was going to build such a strong connection with maybe one or two of the doulas on that team, and then with my luck, one of, neither one of them would be the one that was at my birth.
Yeah.
So I was really excited to come across Miranda's page with District Birth, and I was like, let me just go for that consultation call, see what she's all about. And we clicked instantly.
Immediately.
And I was like, oh my gosh, did we just become best friends?
We absolutely did.
And I know we've just kind of covered high level a little bit about, doula-ing, but I think for our listeners who maybe, don't know enough about or anything about being a doula and what a doula does, can you give us what does a doula do in pregnancy, postpartum, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so funny. There's so many people who do not know what a doula is. A doula is a non-medical support person for someone going through pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. And there's also doulas that, you can be of support even before people are pregnant. One of my biggest strengths as a doula is like the amount of education that I try to offer. And so I've had some people who are like, I just got married. We're thinking about getting pregnant within the next year. Can you doula me through that process as well? That's another misconception, is that I think people think that it is only just that pregnancy, postpartum, and really tight within the birth setting. But doulas essentially are going to provide education, help you to build skills that can really help to work around your family and your needs for birth. There's no, again, like being a doula, there's just no right or wrong way to birth. And so every family is going to be very individualistic and like have different needs. When we start thinking about like one day when we're a mother, like we start to find sometimes unintentional or subconscious truths that we've formed or have gotten from society or from other people. And so I do a little bit more of a kind of a holistic style doula approach where I'm very like, I love data and I love giving the literature, but I also am like, now, what was your first telling of a birth story? Maybe it was, my mom was pregnant and then she left and then I had a sibling. And so maybe that has led your mind to believe that you just have a baby and you go to a hospital and that's it. And that's your like one and only option. So I do a lot more of the excavating work, inspired from the Birthing from Within framework. I'm currently going through like a recertification through them. And it's just been transformative in how I approach being a doula. And so essentially we work to kind of just make sure that you are advocated for in your birthing spaces and settings, know that you have the skills to learn how to do advocacy, because a lot of times, I mean, even though we're grown adults, like it's hard to like go in and talk to a provider, especially like you trust these people with your care. You've gotten this far. And so it can feel a little like we're going against them or like creating issue when really it's just that maybe I don't need Pitocin right now. And I'm okay saying that. And so I spend a lot of time like working to build up those skill sets to have the informed education and decision-making skills around what works. And then of course, throughout pregnancy, we'll have different prenatal visits. And then through the labor and birth setting, I'm usually there within the framework of ensuring that labor stays efficient. And then in postpartum, also ensuring that it's like seamless of a transition. I think people feel so abandoned in postpartum where they're just like, shit, we have this adorable little baby. Now what do we do next? And so I really ensure that my families feel that support, that questions that they need answered are there. It can be hard when you have a baby and they're like, see you in 6 weeks. Don't need us before then. And so I try to become that built-in village. I think that I would have really benefited from having that. And so I've kind of strived to like be that person for others.
So I love all of that. Do you get the same feeling every time you help a baby be born? Are you kind of like, oh, okay, another kid, cool, here you go. Let me weigh this thing, or whatever. Or is it still as like,
I definitely
exciting.
I don't think that I'll ever get jaded from birth. I think every time a baby comes, they've just changed the world just by simply existing and being born. And so to me, that's never been lost on me. I think that even in the hardest of birthing spaces and settings, I've always just been like, whoa, life is now changed forever and permanently for, even if it starts in that microcosm of a family, but it just gets so much bigger when you start to think about it. So sometimes when I'm at a birth, I'm like, who is this little human going to be one day in the world? And so I always feel really appreciative of that. And babies, I think too, oftentimes people will think that like as doulas, we're just here for the babies, but I'm like, I'm here for the mamas usually.
Yeah.
And so I definitely appreciate seeing the babies be born, but then I'm like, oh, like how does this mom transform and like meld? And so even more than the babies being born, I'm like, whoa, I just saw somebody become a real version of themselves and like carve through layers to like, escape out of that. It's super trippy.
Ooh.
I mean, Miranda just talked about what she does as a doula. As she was talking, I was having flashbacks to my birth and what she did. I'm like, yes, she did all of that throughout my birth. But what she didn't say was that she held my hair back when I was throwing up. She held my hand during some of the hardest contractions that I experienced in my life. She had lunch with me and acted like everything was normal, even though it wasn't. She baked lactation cookies for me after and came a few days later. I mean, she saw me split wide open. She moved me from the tub to the bed to the ball to the everything. I'm getting emotional just thinking about it because without having her there, I just don't think I would have had the same birth experience. And I mean, our bond is forever cemented because of that day. It's, I mean, the second that Miranda got there, she did not turn off. She didn't stop for a second to like breathe or take a nap or anything. I mean, I every time I closed my eyes and opened my eyes, Miranda was standing right next to me, along with Yassine, of course, but every single second she was there. And I don't think that you can put that on your website or anything like that. You know what I mean? And say that that's a service that you provide because every birth can be different. And then last but not least, the most important feeling was the feeling of safety that Miranda gave me. That is what a doula does if they do it well. And it sounds like it's safe to say if, you know, the day that comes, if it does come, where you don't feel the excitement and all those feelings that you just described come to you, then maybe it's time to move on.
I think so. And I think, you know, as someone who's been able to be privileged enough to share, you know, different like continued education with like growing in other doulas in the world, doula burnout is like a really real thing. And it has also a very high turnover rate. It's something that I think when you start to feel those calls, and I felt them many times over my 10 years, and usually when I do start to feel that, ooh, I'm starting to feel some compassion fatigue, I know that's a time that I haven't been able to show up and take care of myself as deeply. And so then it's starting to kind of affect how I'm showing up in a birthing space, because I want to be that person who can be there completely, not worrying about what's going on in the world outside, but being able to just be present in the birthing space. And so I am not shy about telling a doula, when you start to feel you've lost that passion, I would much prefer them to kind of table that, because I mean, if you don't, then people feel that in their birthing experience. So yeah, when that feeling starts to go, it doesn't always mean that it has to step back from birth work in the sense that like you're not a practicing doula. Like I solo parented on my own for 3.5 years straight while Maddox's dad was overseas. And I feel like that was a time that there was definitely days where I was like, I have to make sure that maybe now I'm just working on admin, or maybe I'm just working on building courses for other doulas, or building something tangible for families to get education and to still offer support for births, but not being of disservice by not being my best self to show up for their birth. Lots of self-care before and after a birth is so necessary, for sure.
Definitely.
Well, and so necessary for moms too.
Yeah.
It's such a, I would even say women as a whole, to prioritize that self-care, taking care of yourself, because your job depends on you being the best version of yourself.
Completely. And
so many of us let our cups run dry because our jobs don't depend on that. But you have to prioritize it.
Absolutely. I'm navigating my cat being at the end of life, and I was like, okay, I'm going to ask for a big boundary on social media by just being like, I just need space. And I couldn't make it up. That night, I had a client who was 6 weeks preterm go into labor that night, and her husband was overseas. And I was like, fuck, this could not be, and more shitty, terrible timing for it. And as hard as it is, and as hard as I wanted to be there, I can't be a disservice to her. And I had to send in a backup during that time because I want her to have better and I want her to have more. And I knew that I wasn't able to provide that night, despite wanting to and being willing to. I think I just have learned myself enough that I'm not going to even risk somebody's birth feeling affected by my headspace being so clouded.
Wow. That's a big decision.
Yeah.
It was tough.
So knowing what you know now and having assisted with so many births, How would you change how you prepared for the birth of your son?
You know, it's so funny. I was thinking about this question earlier. Someone had recently asked me that, and I feel like I did everything that we're all told, like, you know, you have to prepare in this way, you have to prepare in this way. And I was at a birthing center that required a lot of me. They were like, you have to hire a doula by the time you're 12 weeks pregnant. They've required a food journal, mandatory childbirth education classes. And then everything that could have possibly just gone awry went awry. And so I think that if I could go back to that version of Miranda, I would have just given her the gift of, baby girl, you've got all of the like modern knowing of tools, but what is the like ancient knowing of like what is already in you? Like, what does that say? And like, how does that show up and speak? And like, what does compassion for yourself look like? Because I took so much of that so personally. And I remember even the food journal part, I'd be like, well, I can't tell them I had Chick-fil-A.
Oh, yeah.
So, like,
I'm the same way. Yeah, absolutely.
So, what is up with Chick-fil-A and pregnant moms? Like,
I don't know what they do.
I stopped being a vegetarian after 18 years pregnant for a Chick-fil-A sandwich.
Yeah.
And I would do it again.
Chick-fil-A slaps.
This has been a thing that has come up many times. Chick-fil-A and pregnancy.
I feel like they should sponsor the podcast.
No, but that Chick-fil-A, are you listening?
There we go.
No, but that's such a good point because a friend of ours runs a bunch of wellness stuff, and I wasn't eating when I was pregnant. And to help me, got me on this food journal, and she was going to help me, and I felt so self-conscious, even though I was eating nothing.
Yeah.
I felt so self-conscious being like, well, I had McDonald's or I had Chick-fil-A or whatever, that I just would be like, okay, I can't put it in the food journal, so I'm just not going to eat.
Yes.
You know, someone's holding me accountable. I can't put it in the food journal. I can't eat anything else. Like, I mean, the baby likes Chick-fil-A. What am I supposed to do? But she's going to see that I'm eating Chick-fil-A and I'm, you know, and it would just take me down this whole like mental tailspin that I just wouldn't eat.
Absolutely. I get it. No, I was legit the same way. And now when I look back, I had hyperemesis. And so by the time I could actually eat, I'm like, why was anybody worried about me eating my chicken? I don't think anybody was actually, I think I was worried. It was only me who was worried, but I was like, they probably would have just been like, we're happy you're eating because you've literally been like dying for weeks. And so I wasn't a good friend to myself in new motherhood. I had a lot of, it has to look this way, it had to feel this way. And I think it was also because I was coming off of a later loss where it was just like, oof, like now I've gotten to this point. And 2016 pregnancy times, that was the peak of influencer moms, like finding their voice on social media. So I was like, oh, this does not look at all like their pregnancy and their experiences. And I think that was when people were starting to like be more comfortable sharing their birth stories like publicly and online. And so I was just like in my head so deeply that I did all of the preparation, but I didn't do the like heart excavation work. So I definitely did not ask those like heart knowing questions. And I think that would have been the thing that I could have changed, because as far as the education, although I did drop out of my childbirth education class, because I don't remember even why it felt weird to me back then, but I remember I made it like 2 sessions in and I was like, get me the hell out of here. Yeah, this is not for me. And I joke because my husband had scratched out the cesarean part. He was so delusionally confident in me. He's like, she's never going to need a cesarean. I don't even need to know and hear about this. And now I make fun of him for that, because not only did I have a cesarean, but I had one of the most terrible cesareans you could ever have. Thank you for being ill prepared for that. I didn't help by being like, yeah, we should drop out of this class because they serve chicken salad with grapes. And I don't like that. Pregnant me felt very strongly about it. I don't think that was the reason, but I do remember as I was trying to think back in my head, I was like, oh, I do feel like that had something to do with it.
Yeah, no, that would put me in a tailspin pregnant. It would now. I'm like, I'm sorry, grapes don't belong in chicken salad. Or raisins, you know?
No, definitely don't put a raisin in.
No.
So would you say that your birth story plays a huge role in how you support your moms or the moms that you work with?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that my birth story was so layered because it was kind of paving me for my path forward, where every little like possible intervention, or I mean, for just a little quick insight is that I had prepared for an out-of-hospital birthing center birth where I was like, great, we're going to do a water birth. And I was really excited and really eager for that. And then when I was about 32 to 33 weeks pregnant, I found out by like complete fluke and like accident that my son had a really severe birth defect that we were looking at. And at the time, they were like, we don't even know what we're looking at, what we're seeing. And my midwives legit just like kicked me out of the practice by sending a letter and being like, yeah, you're too much for us now. Like, have so much fun at the hospital though. And I remember I felt so vulnerable because I only get like weird thyroid issues when I'm pregnant. I think that was something that correlated with my daughter's death. When they kicked me out, I think at that point then I was 34, 35 weeks and nobody was willing to take me at the time. And so then I had to go without medication and I was freaking out and I was like, what the hell is going on? And so I ended up going to this hospital, the only one that would accept me at that gestation. And they were not very happy to have I remember at the time of my birth, they were like, you seem like you're a birthing center kind of client. And I was like, cause I am, and I don't really want to be here. And so I remember at certain points even feeling they were just out to get me because like they were just like, let's see how much we can like ramp things up and like how much she can take. Like I remember like the Pitocin levels because my goal was like still unmedicated. They were like, well, you're not feeling it at 5, so like, or 4 because it goes in increments of 2, so it's like, let's go to 6 right now, and then like just really rapid on the like ramping things up. And I remember like, they would just find it like so frustrating because I was still coping so well. And I think for me at the time, it felt like the only thing I had control over was to be able to get the coping and like get to the birth that I had first seen in my head. And so I was like, this is the only thing I have left, so I'm gonna cope. And it felt like they were just like, well, let's just see how many augmentations we can pour in. And like, eventually something is going to make her break. And I'm a very stubborn person. So
physically angry.
At like maybe hour 40 of the induction, still unmedicated at that point, I was like, this is terrible. This sucks. I feel like you guys are legit torturing me. Things were not kind. And I had one single OB out of that whole, and it was so funny because I was there for so many days. I remember I'd seen her on her first shift and she was such a breath of fresh air. She had shared her story that she had become an OB/GYN. She was still in her residency because she had a birth that was like, nobody believed in her. They just like treated her horrendously. And she was like, fuck this. Like, I'm coming in from the system now. And she was the one and only person who believed me. Her shift came and then went. And then I had someone terrible. And then I think maybe like a day and a half later, she was back and I felt really safe with her. And I had a doula that was amazing, but I think I just didn't really know what I needed in a doula back then. Otherwise, it probably would have looked a little different. So I didn't have like someone who I felt really saw and believed me except for her at that time. And I remember at like maybe 41, 42, I was like, I just don't think that we're like getting anywhere. I had developed uterine infection. My heart rate was crazy. I had a fever. And I was like, I think I want to do a cesarean just because I think that at this point, that's going to be the only choice I get in anything. And I felt like I wanted to do it with her because I felt safe. And then I always joke that I still got my unmedicated birth because the epidural did not work for the cesarean. And like, despite me being like, this is not working and like trying to stay calm enough to tell them. I remember the anesthesiologist at my head was like, no, I heard you're a doula, so you just like know what's happening. And I was like, no. And gosh. I was also like, I was naughty. I had like snuck 8 chicken nuggets like a few minutes before. And so then I'm like, damn Chick-fil-A. I'm like throwing up on myself. The little canister to the right, I can see all of my blood overflowing onto the floor and I'm freaking out and I could feel so much pain. And I remember they didn't listen until I kicked up my leg. And then they were like, yeah, we should have probably listened to her. And then at that point, I think the pain was just so incredibly high that my body was like, yeah, we're not doing this. I'm a pass out queen. And so at that moment, my body was like, yeah, we're going to sleep. And so then I saw a glimpse of my son. And I remember even that felt and looked so scary in the moment of like all of the panic and chaos. And so then I passed out and woke up hours later. And I think because my body was in such a state of shock that when I woke up, I still felt the exact pain that I was like in the operating room. And my son, we knew, of course, he was going to be in the NICU, but I guess I don't know what was going on when I woke up from the other side of that, but I was like, where the hell is my baby? And why don't I get to go see him? I just couldn't conceptualize at the time, like, separation, I think. And so I was like, I don't give a damn what these nurses say. I was like, put me in a wheelchair, take me to Maddox immediately. And as soon as I got down to the NICU, I like stood up and started hemorrhaging, and they were like, get out of here. They're like, you're not even supposed to be here. And so that's how I got caught sneaking around. And then after that, they were like, why don't you sit still? And I was like, I really want to go and see my baby. And so it just felt so challenging to go and see everything shift so deeply. And I think that hardship and just going to so many deep plummeting levels compared to what I initially imagined for my birth, it shows up in like every birth that I am a part of. And now where I'm like, how can I prevent this? It's just little things and little ways, and the advocacy piece, because that was my first time I think I ever had to like really advocate for myself and my needs. And we spent 9 weeks in the NICU after. And so that really, I think, bred the like fierce advocate in me. And so that definitely still shows up in like every birth and setting.
This is the first time that you've heard all of this.
Yeah.
So you're probably in shock.
Yeah.
I've heard this before, and this is why I want to work with her. Because I think it is really layered. And I think that because of all the things that you went through, you've seen so many different versions of how birth can go, and you know how to essentially show up in any way, shape, or form. So I think that's really powerful.
Thank you.
It's your superpower.
One thing I want to touch on is, because I think they're connected, I love the term you've been using of heart work. And you saying, you know, your son is born, you kind of wake up and you're like, where is he? And I think those things are connected.
Absolutely.
Because that's your natural instinct.
Yeah.
Right? That's what's deep down inside of you.
Truly.
It's like your body, your instinct knows, I had a baby, and that baby is supposed to be with me
100.
right now. So to me, it makes total sense that you can't conceptualize, where's my baby? Like, anyone could have said anything.
Completely. And
You
I
know?
wasn't having it.
Yeah.
I was like,
and
no.
you weren't. Yeah, absolutely. When Aurora was taken for me to be sent to the warmer in the nursery, nothing compared, right? But I was like, where is she? Is she okay? Where is she? Is she okay? And my doula was like, she needs to warm up. She'll be right back. She needs to warm up. And I couldn't move.
I know. It stuns you and paralyzes you in it.
It was bad. But my body was like, that baby is supposed to be with you right now.
Completely. It really is so like primitive of a feeling where it's just like, it's just an innate knowing of just as connected as you were in the pregnancy. It's just like, or even some folks who aren't feeling that connection, even when they have that transition and baby is born and earthside, it feels foreign to be like, where is that little tiny human that's like supposed to be right here and by your side every step of it. So,
And one thing we talk about a lot is listening to your body and honoring what your body says and really being in tune with that intuition as a mom. I tell moms all the time, no one will ever know your baby longer than you have.
absolutely. And I
You've
think
known
it's
that
such
baby
that's
in
our
pregnancy.
superpower as mothers is that like we really know. And like when we spot even the smallest changes in our babies, that mother intuition and that gut knowing, we should always follow that. I think that's like one of the things that if every mother had the knowledge that that's going to exist within them and then the confidence to listen into that, there would be so much more ease in life because we feel so deeply connected to them. And I think that society will try to condition you into ways of disconnect. I mean, we're in a life and time where that's just kind of the name of the game right now. And it feels like a natural act of rebellion every time I'm like, yeah, actually, I'm going to listen to that gut feeling. And like, this is like what bringing the matriarchy is for me. And so I'm just like, there we go.
I love that.
Yes, me too.
Like, I never will feel bad about being the mom who will call the pediatrician another time with a question or will advocate for my son. And I think now that he's older and in grade school, it still shows up. And, you know, like within school settings and things as he's navigating, like coming into being I guess, what is preteen? Oh my God, that hurts. That hurts, whatever that is. As he navigates that, I'm like, that just hurt my brain, tickled it, did something funny to it.
So speaking of which, I know that you talked a little bit about kind of venturing into your own business and doing it on your own. How has doing that allowed you to have that work-life balance with being a mom full-time too? How do you juggle both of them?
Is it better? Is it worse?
I think it's better in the sense that now I can be so much more intentional. And it's kind of always been that way as a doula where I'm like, okay, if he's on spring break or there's something that I want to do together, then I won't take on a client due around that time. I think the biggest game changer is that it's taught me the hard work and also the gentle steadiness and the patience that comes from growing your own private practice. And I think it's really allowed more time with him. And so for me, I just realized that towards the end, I wasn't my happiest self growing somebody else's business. And so thus, like, I felt like I was kind of not as present with my work. And so now it's so nice because I can immerse him in a thing. He's always been very knowledgeable about birth and like kind of the settings around it. But I think now he can see even more amazingness that goes into it because now he'll come to like set up for an event with me or be present when I'm doing like a Zoom call in the background or something. And so I think that for me, it gives a lot more ease to just be able to be with him. I think I would be a really bad employee. I don't, not as a doula, but at a 9 to 5, I don't think I could do it right now. And so I feel like this career has been such a blessing for the work mom life balance for me.
I love that.
Sure.
So what are the next steps? Where is District Birth headed?
I think that what calls to District Birth right now, I think we're going through another season of what will the expansion look like. I've been feeling really led to being able to offer my mission from the very beginning has always been able to reach as many families and like be able to provide as many improved birth outcomes for as many families as I could. And I think that for a while I was like, amazing, let's just get it like ground and like go running. But now I'm like, I want to take it even bigger. Like I want to have courses that can be online that can live there so families worldwide can have access to like working with me in some way. And then even bigger than that, after being privileged to see so many amazing doulas as they come and grow, I think I've also seen a lot of disparity within the doula trainings that are out there. And I would love to see more people who want to follow their path or their passion of supporting families and being a doula have an easier access to that. And so I think right now, District Birth is probably going to be growing and starting a doula certifying body in the next like year or so. And so that way we can bring even more amazing support to families to help further grow that mission. I think I've just realized that it's amazing, but I can't do it completely on my own. And there are some really just incredible folks out there who would be incredible in this work. And me personally, I don't think certification is necessary, especially for like Latina and like Black moms and families. This work has been like, it's forever. It's like ingrained within us. I mean, a certification is amazing, but I don't think that it's the most necessary thing. And I think that it's also a big barrier to a lot of more people being able to get into the work and also have like access to competent doula support, because I think that if we just try to cut corners and create a one-stop shop, I've seen some really sad stories happen from like doulas, whether it's them getting burnt out really quickly because they weren't like prepared with like adequate tools to stay supported in this work, or they were never able to like thrive in their business in the ways they want. And so I think that definitely like supporting doulas, and then in turn that will help support other families and continuing to just grow. I think I'm getting into a season right now. I'm coming off of a busy on-call season. I'm excited to see what that creativity will bring up and start to unearth for District Birth.
Yay, I love that. I'm also laughing because I remember I think you know what I'm about to say. I was so passionate about having a home birth and talking about women having choice and et cetera, all the good things. And Miranda's like, have you thought about being a doula?
Oh yeah, we talked about this.
You should be a doula.
You would. So maybe you'll be the first to go through the program.
Jury's still out on that one.
Fair.
But in addition to District Birth, you also love empowering women in all types of settings. And you're also an amazing fitness instructor, as if you're not doing enough.
A lot of things. I still feel so happy that you came to my class.
It was so good. I just wish it was closer.
I know, truly.
But tell us a little bit about that and how you decided to get into that and how it kind of all is parallel to birth work. I think it is kind of related in a way.
I do feel it's related. It's so funny because in the very beginning, when I first had done my first fitness certification, I was like, I don't want this to feel anything like birth work. I was like, I don't want to work with any pregnant people. I was like, I want this to be its own separate thing. And I had signed up for my very first yoga teacher training here in the States. We were living near Annapolis at the time, and it was like I think like a 9-month program, and I got a week before that 9 months, and I was like, these people are fucked up. And I was just like, wait, this is like actually a really shitty establishment and institute. I had let it happen because like, a lot of the harm had been placed onto me throughout that 9 months, but then I saw at that right before 9 month that it was like hitting and impacting other people, and primarily women of color in that training with me. And as I do as a Virgo, I was like, I'm starting a revolution. I don't like it. And so I actually negotiated with them. I was like, I'm not finishing my training here unless you guys are going to provide safer ways and like a safer, warmer, welcoming environment for like myself and the other women of color. They were not very conducive to that. And so then it ended up in myself and every other woman of color dropped out of that training the week before. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, like I've just gone through all of this for all of these months and now it's for nothing because like I didn't have a certificate. I was just like on vibes and had a few books. And so then I was just like, now what do I do? And so I actually shared about my experience on social media, and like overnight it went viral, which was like so trippy. And this story is always one of my favorites because my grandfather is from Colombia and he and I have always been very like spiritually connected, and he had transitioned a few years before, and he always likes to communicate to me through vision. And one day like, I kept hearing his voice and like seeing a vision of me in a jungle, and he was like, you need to start refining what it is that you want out of your yoga practice, because he was also the first person to ever introduce me to yoga when I was young, and he was a really big Ayurvedic practitioner. And so I was like, okay, I need to start refining what it is that I want. I remember that day I wrote down on a list, I was like, I want it to be in a jungle, I want social justice to be like the forefront of this training, I don't want it to be from a white woman, and like all of the different pieces and components where I need it to be really true, authentic yoga. And that day, this like random person had like messaged me on Instagram, and she was like, someone from France who I also didn't know had shared the post with her. She was like, I have this yoga academy in Costa Rica. She was like, I would love for you to come. And at the time I remember being like, stranger danger, this is so weird. Yeah. And Maddox's dad was overseas, so I was like, there's gonna be no way that I can just go and uproot my life to go live in a jungle for like 4 to 5 weeks. I think I shut her down pretty quickly, where I was like, thanks so much, but like, no thanks. And then I just could not stop thinking about it. My grandfather was doing his little vision thing in my head where he was just like kept putting it there. And so I think on the 5th day, because I'm stubborn, I was like, okay, I guess I'll explore more of if this is something that can be feasible and if it can actually apply to my life. And so then kind of inquired a little bit more. It was in the middle of the pandemic, did not have a current updated passport, had never traveled out of the country solo on my own. And there was like 4 weeks until start time, and passports were so delayed. And the whole journey really felt so symbolic of birth, because even down, it was all about surrendering. And the day before my passport was supposed to get there, it got lost in the mail. And I'm like, I have literally 3 days, and then my flight's getting canceled. And so all of it was like revealing and like shedding layers. And then I was a lunatic who went, and I didn't even have air conditioning. We had running water, but like actual like running water when I got back to the States hurt my skin because the pressure was so different. And I just left it out in a jungle for like 5.5 weeks, I think it was total. And that was the most eye-opening and just deeply human experience outside of birthing spaces that I've ever encountered, where I got to be so privileged to like see the indigenous cultures there, and just the primitiveness that is still in jungles and that is still in all of these spaces, and really got to embody true yoga. And so that was my path for a long time, where I was like, okay, great, now I can mend and blend yoga into birth. And so then even there, I still knew that they were similar, but I don't think I really saw. And so it wasn't until this past year that I started my own prenatal yoga and postpartum training for birth, or for yoga rather. So that way I can actually go dive deeper into what that can move through like, and what some of the philosophies can show up like in yoga for the person going through pregnancy or postpartum. And so that's next on the completion list. And then I've also gotten certified in Pilates and Sculpt. And so kind of just like a little bit of a jack of all trades with fitness. I think this year I had a little bit of time off call, and I was like, I just want to see what I can do with this and how much I can teach and like what my capacity is, just because I think that I had always kind of let doula work just be my number one. And I kind of just was like, I teach yoga, but it was kind of a little party hat trick that I would like tell people about randomly and be like, yeah, I can do a handstand. And then they'd be like, oh, I didn't know that. And so now I've really, I think in the last 4 to 5 months, let both of them show up as 2 parts of me, versus having to like, sometimes I would put on my instructor hat if I was around certain people and then take off my yoga or my doula hat. And then now I think we're just like showing up very cohesive.
I love that.
Thank you so much for being here, Miranda. Thank you so much for sharing all of your wonderful stories. I specifically wanted you to join us for the month of April as our guest of honor because of Layla's first birthday being in April. It's been a year. Well, it's been longer since I've met you. So what better way to honor our friendship and our relationship than to have you on?
I am so privileged.
The
It feels
podcast.
such a special honor to be invited into, and just seeing this journey and how you guys have grown with it from the very beginning seeds of it to
Yes.
now we're in this amazing pink room. Like, it's so cool. And you guys are so, I think you're just really ahead of a curve of something that's so needed, especially for like Latina millennial moms. Like, you guys are the first of this. And I think that it's going to be such a powerful voice to have. And I wish that I would have had a Jocelyn and a Lauren back when I was going through very early motherhood. Because I think,
Lucky y'all.
you know what I mean? Lucky you guys. I wish that I had that, because you guys are so amazing, and the impact that you're doing it's going to continue to grow, and the lives that you'll impact just by even being people who are like, I feel less alone, just by hearing these shared stories and these encounters will make so much of a difference.
Thank you.
We hope so. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the episode.
Yep.
And we have now liked to end episodes with an affirmation.
Ooh.
So will you give Mamilennials an affirmation that they can
Absolutely.
use to carry them through the rest of the week?
The affirmation that's calling to me right now is, I let my heart lead the way.
Ooh.
Love that.
That like gave me chills. Yeah. Okay, so wow. That's going to stay with me.
Yes.
Lauren knows where to find you.
Yes, Lauren can find me.
Lauren
Lauren said, I'm going to find you under your bed. Yeah. Like, that's how deeply connected we are now forever.
Lauren and I had a conversation earlier today about how I'm likely one and done. And now I'm like, damn, but it would be dope to work with her.
Well, it sounds like she can help you figure that out
Yeah.
You know, we can process through. We can talk some things out.
But for our listeners that want to connect with you, work with you, whatever it may be, where can they find you?
Yeah, so you guys can find me if you are interested in any birth services. My website is www.districtbirth.com. I am on Instagram. My birth Instagram is District Birth, and then you can find me on just my lifestyle regular page at _Miranda Simone. If you're local to DC, you can catch me at a few different studios. So check out classes there. I usually like post in my stories, and then I'll highlight it.
Yeah.
Awesome. So go check her out, guys.
Yes. Hire her as your doula. Don't look anywhere else.
10 out of 10.
I would be so privileged.
Thank you so much for being here. We love you.
Thank you guys for having me. I love you guys, and it was seriously so much fun.
Yay.
I love it.
Bye.
Love you. Bye. Thank you so much for listening and being a part of the Mamilennials community. If you liked this episode, hit that follow button, connect on our socials, and don't forget to share with other mommies.
Want more? Head to our website, read our blog, grab some merch, and check out our other episodes. Until next time, bye.